there is the Marvel and DC comic book companies are doing crossovers again for the first time since the 90s. And so this is the question I have for you, Jacob. In this similar sense of camaraderie and a shared enjoyment of things, I want you to take two of our shows that are completely unrelated and cross them over. This is an assignment. You don't have to do this within the cold open, but just in the back of your mind, I want you to be taking two of our like best well-known characters, right? And crossing them over and seeing what sort of wacky adventures they get into. And I'll do one and you do one, and we'll come back to it.
Wait, you don't want
Does that sound like a plan?
When do you want me to do this? I'm confused because you said not now, but it kind of seems like now, so I'm completely lost.
Well, I was gonna come back to it. If we didn't bring it up by the end of the episode, I was gonna come back to it next week's cold open.
Okay,
so let's
let me
just
get
say
this
next
straight.
week.
So let me get this straight. So during my pitch, where I'm talking about relaying the story and reading and doing all this stuff at the same time in a separate part of my brain, you want me to come up with a whole nother story and a crossover and all that stuff.
No, well, yes, obviously. I want
so
you want me? It's called multitasking.
Well, you're just sitting
Jacob.
there, fucking twiddling your thumbs. You want me to do double duty, more work.
Yes, extra work.
Okay, how about you do that? While I relay the story, and you also have to give inciting, thoughtful comments and advice and ideas for my story, huh? How about that?
All right.
That's what you do.
That sounds good. I said we do it next week. You're the one who's saying it has to happen this week. I'm saying next week we come back, both of us, with crossover ideas.
Now I'm completely lost because that's not what you said. You said at the end of this episode.
I said maybe at the end of this episode or at the cold open next week. It's up to you, Jake. You're the decider. You are the champion of your own fate here. Not I, sir. Not I.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Reasonable Pilots podcast. I am your co-host, Jake. With me, as always, is your extremely annoying, obnoxious host who doesn't know what he's talking about or where we're going or what's going on, and just wants to create more work for me. How are you doing, Charles?
I'm doing great. I love creating more. I don't like creating more work for you. I love creating more headaches for you. That's what I'm here for. I am... In future, they're gonna cut your head open and they're gonna find this little tiny tumor on the creative section of your brain, right? And the tumor will just have one word on it and it'll say Charles. That's all it'll be. It'll just be sucking away your life force. Yeah. That's what I want to be.
I can feel it happening right this second. But fortunately, not right now, because I've got a new pitch. As you know, Charlie, we at the VeryReasonablePilots podcast come up with new TV show, movie ideas every week, come up with different stories, different pilot ideas, seasonal arcs, characters, all this fun stuff. And you gave me a title last week that I had to come up with a new show for, and that title was...
Garden of Sodom.
The Garden of Sodom. This was a difficult one. Well, until I got kind of what I was, so when you think of Sodom, I think of like the biblical Sodom, right? Like the city. And
Sodom and Gomorrah.
And the garden, I assume, like Garden of Eden was what you said you were going. So I looked up Sodom in the Bible. I saw there was, more than one sin in Sodom. The stereotypical thing is sodomy, which actually reading that part of the Old Testament, it's not totally certain, at least from my reading, that was sort of the primary thing. So it's interesting that's the thing that's associated with the city of Sodom. But it seemed like the major sins of Sodom were pride, cruelty, injustice, and violations of hospitality. So I've tried to sew those themes into this story that I have written. I use that as the genesis of this idea. Pun intended.
Oh, Genesis. Good one. I'm a fan of it.
There we go. So, I don't know. What were you thinking with Garden of Sodom before I jump in? Actually, I wanna kind of pick your brain.
Well, see, to me, I was read the title as a little bit less literal. You know, like less actual biblical things and more just the idea of a place, the Garden of Eden, being turned, like a utopic place being turned into something vile and disturbed and disgusting, right, over time, right? So the Garden of Eden being corrupted. And so I didn't have a specific idea in mind for this title, but my feeling was sort of like, what if there was like this city or this place that was perfect in every way, and our main character is just uncovering the sort of the corruption and vileness that exists underneath every surface of this seemingly utopic, civilization or something like that. Just something perfect being corrupted by mankind and our hubris. That sort of thing.
Okay. I might have misled you slightly because you said literal. This isn't super literal because this is a steampunk mafia drama.
Yes, steampunk. I love steampunk.
That's set in Firenze, which is just Italian for Florence. It's an alternate sort of history reality version of Florence, where the city never lost its luster and remained dominant in Italy. So Florence kind of got, super small after a couple of after the Italian wars. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. They used to be big in the banking world. You've heard of the Medicis and stuff.
Yeah. They used to be big, but then they starred in Thunderbolts, and that movie bombed, and so they're not as big anymore.
Was the Medici family in Thunderbolts?
Nope, Florence.
Oh, okay. Oh, Florence Pugh.
Florence Pugh.
That's right. Yeah, okay. That was...
God.
Man, that was a...
I'm sorry, I'm so funny for you.
That's something
so funny.
that I doubt anybody connected. There's another thread that was in your brain and no one else's. Anyway, so steampunk Italy, mainly set in Firenze. Some of the other neighboring places. So we have Milanese, which is Milan, which is the militaristic northern neighbor, and then Lazio, which is the region where Rome is. And it's the ancient enemy to the south of Firenze, and then obviously also Venezia, which is Venice, which in this story is a sort of distant investor city, which is not really involved in like the thick political drama, but is directly involved. But they're kind of like they'll back a side, supply some money. They've got like investments.
It's like the Iron Bank.
They're like the Iron Bank in Game of Thrones. So, I'm gonna do some world building first, so that you have an idea of what's going on.
Please do.
The city of Firenze, as it was in its heyday, is a republic, which is governed by the Signoria, which is the legislative body at the center of the city. They do anonymous voting once a year. There's 12 members. No members of the aristocracy are allowed to join, but it's full of proxies for the wealthy people. So, like, the wealthy families that control the city aren't directly in the legislature, but they have, Bob, who's the guy that takes their money and is in the legislature. There's not actually a guy named Bob, but you get the idea.
Classic Italian name.
Yeah, Bob. Well, Robert De Niro, very famous actor who plays Italian characters, and people call him Bob, so boom.
This is true. You're right. I stand corrected.
So, to give you an idea of the landscape, Firenze is kind of like how modern Florence has very narrow streets. Though, unlike the modern city, there's lots of trains and trams that are all over the place. And it's a very wide city. So I wanted to keep like the older, cool architecture, but also have like a futuristic city. So the way I did that is that, like, in the center of the city, we have Old City, which is like old Florence, which is kind of how Florence looks today. But there's gonna be more trams and trains and a little futuristic technology. Well, not
more
crazy
steampunk stuff.
And And on the edge of the city, so around this very low altitude in terms of like, you know, the size of the buildings, area is like the much more built up area. So it's like very short city in the middle, which is the old city, and then kind of taller, crazier looking, more steampunky stuff around it, like a big circle. And the more wealthy people live in the old city, the center of the city. And the way the real estate works there is that you can't sell your property. So you're born in the center, the old city, the wealthy part of the city, you know, the prestigious part of the city. You can't sell your property. It just goes down in your family forever. So it's kind of a way of keeping it so that it's only these, you know, the old prestigious people in that part of the city.
It's old money. No way we're getting new money into this part of the world.
Being, you know, good or not good. Being
like keeping heritage and history alive, but in actuality, it's just a way to like kind of keep the wealth centralized to this group of people.
Yeah, exactly.
I do have a question about this steampunk style, right? Now, obviously, the steampunk aesthetic is heavily inspired by the Industrial Revolution of the mid-1800s in England, right? Obviously. It is mid-1800s, right? I didn't get those years mixed up, did I?
Do you want to... no one cares, Charlie.
Nobody gives a fuck. So, like, the aesthetics of steampunk are very much inspired by British fashion and British culture and history. So I'm wondering, seeing as you're setting your steampunk universe, like, we're kind of centering it around Italy.
Yeah.
Are we going to try and kind of work more Italian ideas, like more Italian clothes and fashion and history into the sort of steampunk thing?
Yeah, it's good you pointed that out, actually, because in my head, I didn't even write this down, but in my head, it's kind of like, it's like, imagine if this, you know, this steampunk revolution, technological revolution, happened during the Renaissance. So it's like...
Okay.
It's like they're, you know, picture colorful clothing, very vibrant people, lots of, like, you know, people studying the classics.
Stockings and big hats and floofy collars and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's more colorful and bright like that. Maybe not as, you know, as grandiose, because some of those outfits look kind of ridiculous. Gaudy, so I need like some designer to design something that's a little more sleek but still colorful and neat, you know.
Well, see, in my head, I was going even further back than the Renaissance, and I was like, these guys, they're fucking dressed like steampunk Roman soldiers. Like the fucking military guys are rocking up, and they look like centurions, but they've got like jetpacks and goggles and shit on, you know? But that makes more sense to set it in like a Renaissance style thing.
Yeah, because I want to keep like prime Florence in the crosshairs of this, because I think I recently read a book about Florence, so that's why it ended up being in Firenze. But like I like that style, like the politics and the history of it, and so I've kind of co-opted it into a mafia story here. And at the center of a mafia story, always, Charlie, has to be the families. You know, that's just how it is.
The families.
So, the principal families or organizations in this universe. First, we have the Lorenzi, who are this grandiose, splendorous family/clan at the center of political and social life in Firenze. They're in charge of the most renowned and successful bank in the city, which is known for lending to foreign states. So, like, a bank will, a smaller, lower-tier bank is like, okay, people in the city use this bank. This is what they do. This isn't like that. This is like you don't have, like, an account here. Like, the king of some foreign country has an account here, and he borrows, like, tens of millions of florins to, fight a war. This ain't a bank like you and me use. This is a bank for super wealthy people to fight massive wars. And they have very deep ties with the Duke of Milanese, which is Milan, which is to the north. And that mainly because they offer, like, a massive line of credit to him so he can fight his wars. So they're like the big monetary backers of this strong military power to the north, which is kind of one of the principal reasons that they're so strong in Firenze is because they have this nearby massive military backing. Then we have the Scali, Charlie, who are the jealous rivals. You know, they're the opposites of the Lorenzi, the jealous rivals, the Scali.
The Maronis to the Falcones.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. I was trying to think of a mafia example like that. I can't remember who like the bad families are in a lot of mafia movies. What's the famous ones in New York? What's like?
I know, man. The only mobsters I know are Batman related.
Or like Chicago. So like who did Al Capone not like? I don't remember any of those.
Yeah.
And whoever it is, you get the idea. The rivals, the main principal antagonist of the Lorenzi are the Scali. Basically, it's kind of just all the wars that happen in this world are either intentionally or unintentionally proxy wars between the Lorenzi and the Scali. So if you are fighting a war and you borrow money from the Lorenzi bank, you're almost certain that your opponents, whoever they are going to be able to get a loan from the Scali bank. It's just how it is. Because both the Lorenzi and the Scali, their goal is that our side's going to win the war, we'll get paid back. But more importantly, if the Scali donate or lend money to a losing side, the side lost and they're not going to get paid back. So, that's a complete loss on their investment. So, always, putting money to the other side of whatever war the Lorenzi are back in. And they're so the Lorenzi are very fantastic in life, in like the social life of the city. They're like, all the big socialites are part of the Lorenzi family, all the people that you go to's house for parties and all that kinds of stuff. The Scali are much more secluded, keep to themselves, reserved. Not like, losers, but like they don't try to be the center of attention.
They're a little bit more mobstery.
Yeah.
Like you get those mobsters who like, I'm going out on town, I'm spending money, I'm taking pictures of supermodels and stuff, and then you get the guys who are like, Tony Soprano, we're sitting in the back room, right? We're smoking cigars and playing pool. Yeah. We got a couple of dames, right? But we're not, no cameras, no big ballrooms.
A really good example is, have you seen the movie American Gangster with Denzel Washington?
Not in a very long time, but yes, I have seen American Gangster.
Well, in that movie, Denzel Washington plays like a very, very powerful, like drug kingpin gangster. And his like main thing is he like wears more simple suits. He tries to attract as little attention as possible. He doesn't really go to like a lot of events and stuff. And if he does, he's in like very normal looking clothing. He doesn't have like anything crazy on, except for one point in the movie where he wears a coat and that ruins everything for him. But wears like a fancy chinchilla fur coat, and then spoilers for that movie. Anyway, but beyond that one point, there's like very simple clothing. Very reserved, not in the spotlight of society. That is the Scali in social life. And one of those reasons for that is, and it's something that's relevant in sort of the political game of this world, is that the Scali, very long time ago, they in this universe, they backed a attempted assault on Firenze by the city's southern neighbor, in an attempt to they get Lazio to come in, take over the city, kill all the Lorenzi, and then the Scali are in charge. But that didn't work out for them. But this happened a long time ago, so people aren't as concerned about it. But it's like one of those like political slights that comes up all the time in like normal politics. But it's like so long ago that's like, it's not really that big of a deal, but it's kind of a little bit of a deal. Anyway,
people still think about it.
Yeah, people are still bothered by it. So two maid families, Lorenzi, Scali. Next we have the Bardi. The Bardi are used to be sort of the third tip of the trident, which was the three families in Firenze, but now they're a lot lower on the totem pole. Very hollow version of themselves. They backed a foreign king in a war, and the king lost and defaulted on his debt. And they were so invested in this foreign king that it just collapse them. So now they're like a shadow of their former selves, like kind of barely scraping by, but with enough social currency to sort of keep alive in the game, but not enough to be relevant anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the final
I'm picking up what
major
you're putting
player
down.
in the city is the exiles, which is not a family, but a bunch of exiled soldiers and nobles from across the world who act as a sort of like mercenary group / lobbying group who sort of are like trying to get money from the different banks to support their causes and trying to get other exiled nobles and people to come with them to, like, you know, take back their kingdom or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of just like a band of rabble, kind of directionless a little bit. Characters, okay. We're almost into the pilot, I swear, Charlie. I know I've been going on.
Take your time. I'm liking this world. I like the
you know.
weird Italian names. And I do think it's funny. You will appreciate this. The only time I've ever heard Lazio ever said in real life has been in reference to football, aka soccer for you Americans.
Yeah.
And so now you keep saying it, and I'm like, are they playing soccer? Oh no, they're gangsters, and Lazio is an actual place in the real world.
Yeah.
Not just a fucking soccer team.
Yep. Blow your mind. Our character. So you said weird Italian names. This is where we get to the weird Italian names. So I just told you about the exiles, who are the exiled nobles. And well, there's the most important of which is Marie Savonarola. Marie Savonarola is an incredibly wealthy, beautiful, militaristic princess from the East. Very fiery, wrathful, scheming, and she's got a slew of retainers and the loyalty of the exiles. So the reason she's so important is that, like, most of these exiled nobles are, like, kind of lower tier. Like, they're the fourth sons of counts, or they're, like, soldiers from, like, a losing side in a civil war. And she is the first daughter of a king of Eastern kingdom. So she's, like, in terms of the, you know, aristocracy or, you know, royal hierarchy, she's well above everyone else. And so she's got a lot more money, and she's got a lot more soldiers than anyone else. So she's kind of the de facto ruler of this band of people. So she's the loose mob boss kind of them, and has a lot of sway and power in you know, what causes are backed and what aren't. And the main families of the city all kind of, they don't necessarily need her, but they need her not to be mad at them, at least.
Yeah, she's a good ally and she's a bad enemy.
Yeah, because she has enough power that it could sway the scales a considerable amount. Speaking of swaying the scales, we have Cosimo di Scali, the leader of the Scali.
That was some good wordplay, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. Cosimo, by the way, sick name. Cosimo di Scali. So the Scali, as I mentioned, are the, you know, the second, the underdogs, the antagonist of the families. And Cosimo he's the epitome of that. He's a ruthless weasel. He's a recluse. He's got a mask on because he's got leprosy. He feels like everyone hates him and he wants revenge. He's just super vengeful, weaselly guy. But he's not like the complete Bond villain evil. You kind of feel bad for him because he's kind of like, he's very smart and he's very clever and he deserves respect, but he doesn't always get it. You feel like he should have some sort of weight and respect, and he has a lot of power. He's a very smart guy, but he's sort of looked down upon by society because of his because his family is kind of just the bad guys, and also he's got leprosy, which doesn't help.
That does tend to affect things.
And you know, he's a very jealous guy because he's the leader of the Scali, and he's this kind of deformed person. And the leader of the Lorenzi, Piero de Lorenzo, is this magnificent, gregarious guy who's loved by everyone, envied by everyone, super handsome, older guy. So imagine like George Clooney, probably. Just this super charismatic, lovable person. Everybody likes him. But he's not, you know, Cosimo di Scali is like a very calculated, ruthless person. Piero de Lorenzi he's kind of a risk taker, you know. He doesn't really do all the math. He just does things and gets lucky. You know, he'll back somebody who should definitely lose in a war, and then boom, it goes great.
He's kind of like an Alexander the Great style figure, where he's just like, this guy shouldn't be winning as many victories as he's winning. And then you realize, like, oh, he has all the money and all the power, right? He doesn't even necessarily need to be very good at this to be a winner.
That was an atrocious statement. Alexander's one of the greatest generals in history, so I have no idea what you're talking about. With that was someone who has no idea what they're talking about.
I'm talking about history, and I'm talking about Alexander the Great showing up to a whole bunch of battles with a whole bunch of super well-armed soldiers and all sorts of crazy technology, and all their fucking enemies have fucking shields made out of reeds and shit. No wonder he won.
All right, so let's pause the pitch for a second.
15 years old.
Charlie, Alexander the Great, king of Macedonia, his major feat that he did was he conquered Persia, the empire.
Yeah.
Which was way bigger, way more money, way more soldiers, way more technologically advanced, if you can even say that, because I mean they're all basically the same level of technology. Not relevant at all.
Nah.
So anyway, we'll move on from that.
I think
Charlie has no idea what he's talking
bullshit.
about. Anyway, he no. I mean, what, do you think you know more about this than me? Like, I don't understand. You're the guy who was asking when the Industrial Revolution was a minute ago, so I don't know how much our audience can really...
Jake, I know more about history than you, don't you know? I'm very
knowledge.
good at this stuff.
All right, let's move on. Piero, super cool. It's not that he's like... He's not like some... he doesn't deserve his job. It's not like he's terrible at it. He's just annoyingly good at it, and to someone that's outside, it kind of just looks like he's stupid lucky and everything's been handed to him. But he's very smart. He is, a lot of it is due to his charisma and ability to get people to trust him and like him, which are things that aren't really like calculatable, and you can't really like put it on a ledger.
And you really can't do it with leprosy.
No, you definitely can't do it with Cosimo's leprosy. So, as I said earlier, the three main families, but one is less prestigious. We have the third one, which is Giovanni de Bardi, who's this tired old man, content with his lot, kind of just wants to fly under the radar, easily intimidatable, but kind of loved and liked in the community as this sort of generous, small-time banker. So he's not as glorious as Piero. He's not as ruthless and smart as Cosimo, but he's got his own talents going for him. And his daughter, on the flip side, Caterina de Bardi, is the youngest member, or the youngest child of his family, who's unlike him, is very bright and very ambitious, and wants to bring the family back to their rightful place as like the third prong in the trident of Firenze. But it's a long road. I am almost done here. I'll get to the pilot shortly. I've got three more characters. I'll just run through them quick. We have Perino, who's this grizzled painter/inventor. He's a pupil to the greatest inventor of the city, whose name is Niccolo Martinetti. So Perino's he's mid-30s. Probably should be on his own by now, but he's been kind of put in the shadow by his mentor, who's like the top inventor of the city, and is works under the Lorenzi. So the Lorenzi are the Martinetti's patron. So he's kind of been stuck. It's like he's a grad student who's under like a PhD student who's under a professor, and he's still. It's been years now, and he's still working under that professor, doing research for that professor, not their own research. If that makes any sense. Yeah,
that makes sense.
And he kind of wants to strike out on his own or do something else. So you get that idea. Last two characters are Angolo Bronzino and Bernardo Bronzino. These are sort of the principal people in this story. The two brothers, both sons of a disgraced noble, so they're loosely part of the Asili, which are, again, as I said, the exiled noble people. Angolo is the bruiser, very hulky kid, toughest kid on the block, very sweet. And Bernardo is kind of the slimmer, clever schemer, very ambitious, wants more in life. So they're kind of up and coming gangsters. And we will open with them on our pilot episode. It only took me 32 minutes to get here.
Well, let's say 25 minutes, because that cold open was long. I was pissing you off.
Yeah, but I have to leave it in because then I did the intro, so we'll see. Maybe I'll cut it down a little bit. Pilot. Angolo and Bernardo are arguing in a dimly lit yard. Bernardo is, he's telling Angolo he's got to start standing up for himself. You got to be more intimidating. You're this big dude, but you're so shy. And Angolo's like, no, I'm tough. I handle myself. I'm not shy. He's like, well, on our last job, you didn't even rob half the train because you were too shy and anxious. And as he's saying this, we'll cut to them robbing a train. It's like this cool steampunky looking train. So imagine a train in the 1950s, but there's lots of steam pouring out the sides. It's got these big side compartments. So everybody's in those rows. And, everybody's in their own little sort of. You know how those trains used to. Well, they still do in some places, but you have the hallway in the middle, and on each area is a compartment. So you'll walk in through a door, and it's a bench on the left and the right. There's 4 people or something in there. So it's that kind of train.
All right.
And
it's a cool, fun train.
Yes. So he's robbing each compartment, and Bernardo's going super quick, popping over the door, yelling put the money in the bag, go. And Golo opens the door. And he's like, "Hey, I'm sorry to bother you. I mean, can you just and he just puts the bag open, and they're like, yeah, I know, I don't need any fruit snacks. I'm good. You can go to the next car. No, I'm not. I'm here to rob. I need you to put the stuff in the bag. He's not a very convincing robber. He's having a rough time.
Yeah. They go oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand. And they take their trash and they put it in the bag. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And he just kind of yeah, okay. And he just closes the door.
But then Angolo, we cut back to the yard, and Angolo's like, that is not what happened at all. It went more like this, and then we'll watch a different scene where he pushes open the door, and he's like, put the money in the bag, and everyone swings and passes out. And Bernardo's like, no, that is 100% not what happened. We got your bag at the end of the heist, and you had 6 candy wrappers and $12 in there. So that couldn't have been the case. It had to have been more the way I said it.
Yeah, you liar, you fucking dickhead.
And then Angolo's like, well, it wouldn't even matter because we barely had any time at all because by the time you finished yapping with your little speech on the intercom, the cops were already halfway there, and we cut to Bernardo doing this over-the-top lavish speech on the intercom about hey, put your money in the bag. It's for the we're this you're getting robbed by the Bronzino brothers. Doing this big overly glorious magnanimous speech about how great he is, how cool they are, and all this stuff. And he's like, if you just focused on robbing them and was simple about it, we would have been able to get the money and get out, and would have gotten more than $200 and a Snickers bar. There's not Snickers bars in Snickers, but some other candy bar.
A fun-sized candy bar, not even a full-sized candy bar. We couldn't we split it. We both got half a bite of a candy bar.
Yeah,
fucking sucked.
So, Angolo's annoyed. Bernardo is annoyed. Bernardo keeps talking about how terrible he was, and eventually Angolo gets so annoyed that he pushes his shovel into Bernardo's chest. So Angolo is the bigger brother, so he's doing all that. While they're talking, and Angolo is shoveling away, and Bernardo just has his chin on his shovel and is just making fun of his brother. And Angolo will shove his shovel into his brother's chest and says, you know what? If you're just gonna keep making fun of me, you can go. You're so tough, you can finish this yourself. And storms off. So the big, strong brother leaves the skinnier one to finish up whatever the job is. And then the camera will pan down, and we can see there's a shallow grave and a dead body next to it. And Angolo, or Bernardo, will sigh, and he'll start shuffling. Clearly, it's a lot more work for him than it was for his brother as well. So it's gonna be some time.
And of course, the candy wrapper should be in the shallow grave as well.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of comedy to help out all of this horrible murder.
So. Next scene, we will go to Perino, the scientist that I mentioned, the painter/scientist who's working in a brilliant laboratory, very lavish, cool-looking place, under the supervision of his elderly master, Niccolo Martinetti, who tells him that he's got to prepare the device for the presentation. And Perino is angry and feels rushed, and he struggles to bring it out and set it up in front of a joyous crowd. As he's like tying up all the wires and everything, Martinetti's giving like this big speech and getting everyone excited. This is like a science expo, and this is the second or third to last presentation at it. And Perino is excited because this is kind of like his big moment to show off this project he's been working on. And as Martinetti finishes up the speech, Perino like attempts to try to continue it in a way, but he doesn't have the style, the presence, the stage, strength that his master has. But he has the ingenuity, because while his speech doesn't really go very well, he plugs it in and he shows off this cool little electrical machine that shoots like electric fireworks into the sky and explodes. And it looks, everyone's sort of dazzled and excited by this cool machine. There's a lot of people are very, like, everything else that was before this, we'll kind of see glimpses of it. It's kind of like cool or interesting, but it's nothing like super crazy. But this seems like to be an actually possibly very useful invention. You'll see a couple people in the crowd, like, they can kind of see the purposes for it, or more than just like cool light shows. They're like someone will maybe get hit by a little bit of electricity and it'll like really hurt them, like it falls like a bird on their arm or something. And you're like, oh, okay, this, there might be.
Oh, there's some technology useful for other things besides dazzling the children with fun lights.
And so Perino tries to sort of explain the possible uses of it, and you'll get an idea of what the way he gives his speech, that he kind of sees possibly military or like other possibilities for it. But Martinetti will interrupt him and be like, it's a simple little children's toy, good for fireworks and all, and will kind of demean him in his speech, and everyone will laugh at his funny jokes and such, and Perino will feel like slighted, angry, sad. And also Martinetti will take credit for the invention as well, which really pisses off Perino. So not only is he playing second fiddle to his boss, but his boss is essentially stealing his inventions.
Yeah.
So everyone cheers Martinetti for the cool invention, and people are talking with him later about like possible other uses for it. And Perino sulks off, and he gets intercepted in a corridor by a Weasley man named Cosimo de Scali. So as I said earlier, the head of the Scali family, guy with a little leprosy mask.
Is it a full face mask, or is it just kind of like a Phantom of the Opera style, like half mask?
I'm thinking like it's like a 3/4 mask. It covers his right eye, his full mouth and jaw, but you can see his left eye, and his left eye looks most in his left side, of, like the upper left corner of his face, is like mostly fine. You can stuff like
maybe you could see just a little bit of the like rot creeping away, creeping like into the thing, but he looks mostly fine. You could tell like, oh, before the leprosy this guy was like kind of a handsome dude, but now he's all fucked up.
It also doesn't have to be leprosy. It can be some made up disease. I don't know.
I think leprosy is fun.
So I don't know if we can have what I want, which is like the 3/4 mask, where only the left upper quadrant of his face is fine. But whatever disease it needs to be, that I can have that mask, and make it that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun for leprosy. I think
so. He gets Perino gets approached by the Cosimo, who asks if he's like, oh, great invention, all that, very very neat, very cool. Martinetti must be so proud of you. And he's like, it's okay. He's like, well, if you ever feel unappreciated, you can always come to work for me. It's not all the Lorenzi are not the only patrons of the arts in the city. If you want to find some other place where people might appreciate and like your talents a bit more, you can come by my office. And Perino is hesitant, like he doesn't like his boss, but he's been with him for a long time, and he's not just gonna ditch him because of like one word. So he's like,
one instance of this guy being an asshole.
He's like, I don't think so. Like, I've got to, I can get upset, but he's been very good to me for a long time. And Cosimo's, if you change your mind, come by. And also, I wanted to give you this for, a token of my appreciation for the wonderful event. And he hands him this very nice bottle of wine. And Perino like tries to refuse the gift, but Cosimo's already walking away, waving. And Perino just looks down at the bottle. And we cut to the crowd of the presentation. Still inside, everyone's sort of talking to Martinetti about the great invention, except for Caterina and Giovanni de Bardi. Giovanni de Bardi wants to leave. So again, this is the third family that's not really what they used to be. Caterina being the younger daughter and Giovanni being the old head of the family. So they came to watch this presentation, and Giovanni's like, okay, that was good, let's go now. And Caterina's like, no, like we should go talk to Perino. Like I mean, it was clear to everybody, or at least in her head, that he was the real inventor behind that. So we should, maybe we should go talk to him and see if we can get him on our side. It'd be great to finally be a patron of the arts again. Her dad's like, we don't have the money for that. Like, it's too risky. I would never want to upset the Lorenzi. They've been good to us. We can't get involved in that game. And they're kind of arguing about this. And this is where we get a lot of the world building. So all that stuff I explained to you before the pilot. On the trip home with these two, this is where we get the idea of the families and their situation compared to them, and like the whole idea of this city and the mafia banking families that are at the center of it. We get all that from their trip home, and they're arguing this whole time, and Caterina feels pressed to take things into her own hands. She's like, I got to do something about this, and we'll cut back to later at night. Perino is drunk in the lab. He's had the full bottle of wine that Cosimo gave him, completely empty now, absolutely pissed drunk, and he's like knocking stuff over in the lab. He's like messing with the other people's inventions, just upset, sort of wrecking havoc. And that's when Niccolo Martiretti comes in, like in his sleeping robe, pissed off, like, what are you doing down here causing a bunch of a ruckus? Like, you need to go home, get out of here. Like, you're drunk. You're an absolute mess, Perino. Like, I'm so disappointed in you. And
get out.
This pisses off Perino, starts yelling at him, threatening to leave. He's like, I had an offer from another person. They think I'm better than you. Like, you're nothing without me. And Martinetti like goes through a big list about how Perino would be nothing without him. He'd be like still living in the slums. He never would have moved to the old city. He wouldn't have his job. He wouldn't have had his education if it wasn't for him. He owes everything in his life to Martinetti. And this pisses off Perino even more because he's feeling like he's being like, his personal life's being attacked. He's acting like he didn't, work for anything in his life and it's all handed to him. He's like, no, that's not true. You're an asshole. Like you can't say this stuff to me. And he'll slap Martinetti across the face. He's an old man. He gets hit across the face. He falls, hits his head on the counter, and hits the ground hard, and does not get up. And Perino panics, and he's like rushing over him, trying to check his pulse, but he can't find his pulse. He's like freaking out. And as he's doing this, the door opens, and he looks up, and it's a bunch of guards and Cosimo Descalin. He's like, all right, don't worry about it. It's okay. And he'll grab Perino, who's like crying. He's like, I didn't mean to. I didn't know. He's like, it's okay. It's okay. I'll take care of it. I'll handle it. And he looks at his men. He nods, and they put a blanket around Martinetti's body, and they carry him away. Cosimo's like, don't worry. I'll take care of this. You got nothing to worry about. And so now these guards bring him outside, and they'll the body of Martinetti. They'll bring him outside, and they'll go load him into a massive sack, and they'll trudge him across town, where they'll run into the Bronzino brothers, who they'll pay to dig up and bury this guy. So that body you saw at the beginning of the episode was Martinetti.
So it's a fucking Pulp Fiction where the beginning's the end. All right, we like that. A little bit of time. We're making fun with time.
And then we'll cut to where we were before, and you'll see that it was Martinetti's face. We'll see the last push, notch of dirt, or last bit of dirt dropped on his face in the grave as Bernardo finishes up.
Yeah.
Bernardo will then run off and he'll catch up with his brother Angolo at the bar, and they're going to drink and have some fun until a large group of gangsters come in to the bar and are like, everyone out, like, we're taking over. And after their big conversation, Angolo feels like he needs to stand up for himself now. And Bernardo is like, no, you don't need to, we can just go. And Angolo is like, no, I've got this. You said I need to stand up for myself, I am. So his brother, the big hulking kind of sweet kid, goes up to these gangsters like, no, we're not fucking leaving. You leave.
Yeah.
And fight breaks out. Angolo obviously starts it. Bernardo, he's not gonna not support his brother, so he jumps in. He starts kicking dudes' butts, and fun bar fight. Everybody's getting involved. Eventually, they'll crash out through the window and escape into the night, fleeing. Angolo is thrilled. He's like, I feel like you were completely right. I do need to stand up for myself. Like, that was so much fun. That was great. And Bernardo's like, yeah, okay, that's great, but those guys you just beat up, those were Scally gangsters, and if they find out who we are, we're fucking dead. End of the episode.
Oh no, I made a mistake.
Yeah. I am well past the time for this, so I won't give you. Maybe I'll save the rest for a two-parter later.
Oh, a two-parter. Ooh,
so we got some mystery here. We've got these up-and-coming gangsters. We've got this family that wants to, get back to the top. We've got this inventor that made a terrible mistake, or did he? Was Martinetti really dead? Who knows? Maybe there's a reveal.
Oh, did he? Maybe he comes out of the grave. I love that trope when the hand pops out of the grave and lightning strikes, and then they crawl their way out. I'm a fan of that.
Oh, well, okay. Well, I'll just reveal it to you because it's not that. In the second episode, the way it would start is that we would get Katerina's perspective because she goes back to the laboratory that night so that she can talk to Perino. And she'll get there and she'll watch from the outside all of what happens. But what she sees, which Perino doesn't see and we don't see in the first episode, is that Martinetti's not dead until the thugs get him outside and they stab him in the neck. Because Martinetti wakes up briefly. It's like, what's going on? Who are you? And then
what's happening?
They'll just stab. So Perino will, in the later series, is going to obviously get blackmailed by Cosimo de Scali. But the blackmail's a lie in the end. Ooh. But
and that'll be revealed, and his conscience will be cleared, and therefore he'll be like, you know what? I'm not going to take. I thought I had taken a life, and so I was more okay with making weapons to take lives, but now I know I'm not a killer and I won't help you be a killer or make more killers or whatever,
Yeah, something like
and
that.
He'll sabotage an invention that'll fuck up that guy's, the only corner of his face that isn't fucked up. He'll sabotage an invention and burn the shit out of that part of his face. So he's like, God damn it!
That'd be terrible. Poor guy. He's got one good eye and you want to mess it up.
Yeah, he doesn't buy a new mask, he just wears an eye patch over top of his regular mask. And he's like, I can't see anything. I like it. I think it's fun. I think it's intriguing. There's a lot of different plot lines that are going on, which is what you need in a gangster show, Like a good organized crime show has a lot of different layers, and you have characters who are at the bottom of the totem pole, people who are working their way up, and the people at the top, and you're always going through those those three perspectives of it, which I think, and then you have the character who's outside looking in and being drawn into this web of deceit and lies and stuff like that. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I like the fun Italian Renaissance vibe. I think that's a cool setting. I've never seen that before. I've seen Japanese steampunk. I've seen British steampunk, obviously. I've even seen African steampunk style stuff, but I've never seen Italian steampunk. So that's cool. That's a fun aesthetic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Thank you everyone for listening to the Very Reasonable Pilots podcast. I've been your host, Charles Long. With me as always has been my co-host, editor, producer, co-pilot, gunner, navigator, orator, and podcasting associate, Jacob Gloth. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog, tell your cat. And remember, we will be here next week with a brand new television series that will be titled, let's find out, If memory serves, there are 10 titles available for me to choose from, correct?
There are 1 through 10.
Yeah, I choose number 8. Numero octo.
Protocol 7.
Protocol 7. Hell yeah, I could do Protocol 7. That is actually a very funny title because I've been replaying Arkham City, and Hugo Strange talk about Protocol 10 throughout the entire fucking game. So that was funny that's the title I got. But Protocol 7, hell yeah. All right, we'll get on it. Maybe I'll bring back a character. Maybe it'll be a Captain Weird show. It won't be, but maybe it'll be something else. We'll find out. Thank you, everyone, and please have a good day.